The sleek chrome kitchen on the Netflix soundstage was a whirlwind of chaos as the crew prepped for another day of filming The Duchess's Kitchen, Meghan Markle's new cooking show that was supposed to be her big breakout rocket to stardom after leaving the royal family. However, behind the glamorous scene, a storm was brewing that would soon bring the whole high-profile project crashing down in flames. "Where the bloody hell is Meghan?" bellowed the show's flustered director, Stuart Frampton. "We're supposed to start taping the Shakshuka episode in 10 minutes. Various production assistants and crew members exchanged anxious looks and shrugs, avoiding direct eye contact with the increasingly red-faced Frampton. After a few tense moments, a young woman in a headset tentatively raised her hand. Meghan is still in her trailer, Stuart. She's, I think having some issues with her outfit and look for today." Frampton squeezed his eyes shut and pinched the bridge of his nose, as if willing himself not to explode. This was far from the first time the former Duchess of Sussex had held up production with her perpetual tardiness and diva behavior. "Christ, again," he growled through gritted teeth. "Jordan, go see what fresh hell is unfolding now. And for God's sake, someone brew me a whole new pot of coffee. It's going to be one of those days." 10 minutes later, the visibly frazzled assistant Jordan poked his head back onto the main set, looking as if he'd just stumbled out of a war zone. "Stuart, you'd, better come see this for yourself," he stammered with wide, haunted eyes. Frampton let out a primal growl of frustration and stormed off the set, brushing past Jordan and barging through the double doors of Meghan's private trailer. The scene that greeted him inside left even this hardened Hollywood veteran agog. Meghan stood in the middle of the upscale trailer's lounge area, hands defiantly planted on her hips as she surveyed the fallout around her. Clothes and accessories were strewn about in heaping piles, along with what appeared to be at least $10,000 worth of smashed lighting fixtures, mirrors, and decor. 3 terrified-looking hair and makeup artists were huddled in one corner of the room like trauma victims, one of them sobbing softly into her hands. "You!" Meghan suddenly screeched, rounding on Frampton with wild-eyed fury. "This is your fault. I cannot and will not be seen on camera in this state." Frampton blinked rapidly, utterly at a loss as to what depraved alternate reality he'd just stumbled into. "My fault. Meghan, what in God's name is going on here?" "This," she howled, gesturing frantically at her face and hair before whirling to face one of the makeup mirrors, or what was left of it after she'd clearly smashed it into hundreds of shards across the floor. "I look like a troweled donkey. An overbaked cream cake. How can Netflix expect me to dazzle millions of viewers while resembling a mangy street urchin scooped off the roads of Calcutta?" Frampton's mouth worked soundlessly for a few moments before he finally found his voice. "Okay, Meghan, I think you need to take a deep breath and calm down for a dash." "Calm," she cut him off with a feral shriek that made him recoil. "You have the unmitigated gall to tell me to be calm when I have been utterly sabotaged by this Bush League rat's nest of a glam squad?" She whirled again, hands clawing furiously at her hair and makeup as if trying to dismantle herself. "My skin is melting off in sheets. My lash extensions look like webbed turkey feet. And this root situation? I haven't seen hair this unfortunate since the last telegram I received from the refugees of Darfur." Meghan let out a guttural howl of frustration and anguish, snatching up a heavy crystal vase and launching it across the room, shattering it against the wall in a million pieces. The sobbing makeup artist let out a terrified shriek and clutched her friends even tighter. Utterly at his wits' end and deeply concerned for his crew's safety, Frampton raised his hands in a pacifying gesture. Okay, I hear you, Meghan. We can get you a fresh glam team in here right away to get you properly camera ready. Why don't you just take a nice break, collect yourself for a bit?" The former royal narrowed her eyes with suspicion, scanning him up and down like a predator considering its next move. Finally, she jutted out her chin defiantly. "Very well. I shall return to the set in 1 hour. If my aesthetic vision is not manifested to utter perfection by then, so help me God, I will rain down a tornado of fired fury like this pathetic institution has never conceived." Giving him one last contemptuous sneer, Meghan turned on her heel and stormed out of her own trailer, slamming the door so violently that it rebounded open a few inches. Frampton let out a heavy sigh and turned to the traumatized glam team still cowering in the corner. "Right, let's have a medic look you over, get you some waters," he said gently, trying his best to be soothing. "No one should have to deal with that." The lead makeup artist lifted her blotchy, tear-stained face toward him incredulously. "Deal with that? Stuart, we've had to deal with that for 6 straight weeks of filming, 12-hour days. That monster systematically tore each of us to bloody shreds every single day over the most microscopic, imagined faults." Frampton pulled a handkerchief from his pocket and handed it over, noting that the poor woman's hands were still trembling violently in the wake of Meghan's explosion. The other 2 artists nodded in numb agreement, their own faces still bone-white from the harrowing experience. "Do you know she actually hit Rachel across the face with a ceramic bowl last week over a frizzy hair situation that was caused by humidity from the catering truck's exhaust?" the lead artist whispered, her voice wavering. This is madness, Stuart. We can't keep enduring her tantrums and lashing out." Closing his eyes, Frampton took a few cleansing breaths to steady himself. He'd worked on dozens of major productions with all manner of entitled celebrities and diva talent, but Meghan Markle's behavior was quickly skyrocketing to some of the worst he'd ever experienced. "Let's get you all home for the day to rest and regroup," he said at last. "I clearly have an urgent situation to deal with here." Little did Frampton know, that situation was about to detonate into an all-out nuclear meltdown that would consume the Duchess's kitchen production in one fell swoop, along with Meghan's dreams of creating a new media empire outside the palace walls. No less than 90 minutes later, a sleek black Cadillac Escalade pulled through the guarded Netflix studio gates and rolled up to the main stage. Out stepped Reed Hastings, the billionaire founder and CEO of the streaming giant, looking markedly displeased at having been summoned to the set in such an abrupt manner. He was immediately met by Frampton, who looked as if he'd aged a decade in just the last few hours. The director's eyes were wild and bloodshot, his thinning hair disheveled from repeatedly running his hands through it. "Hastings, thank God," he croaked out, grasping the CEO's hand almost desperately. "I don't know what to do. We've got a 5-alarm situation of the highest magnitude erupting here." The Netflix mogul arched one bemused eyebrow, extracting his hand from the director's sweaty grip. "That's rather dramatic phrasing, even for you, Frampton. I distinctly recall approving the Duchess's kitchen based on your own emphatic assurances that Meghan Markle was a total pro." Frampton recoiled as if he'd been slapped. Before he could say another word, however, a piercing shriek shattered the air coming from inside the studio soundstage. They both